simple. We created a simple model class called colors, and we actually transported one single instance of that model where we have few parameters, right? And we were able to access them in here, which is my view class, right? So in view class, you can see I can actually directly use model because I'm actually mentioning the model. Now this is important. So if you mention that, okay, I can use my colors class as a model in my current view, right? Then you can actually directly access your model. Now this is a predefined keyword model in your MVC. Cool. So here, once you mention your MVC, right, class here, right? So this is something which is going to be a model, right? And you can actually add, get the instance. So as soon as you send your, see this place here, when you say view and provide parameters, right? So this will actually instantiate your object of model of type whatever you mention in model. That's how it works in MVC. Internally, it will get instantiated, right? And you will actually get the you can actually get all the parameters you have. Now today we'll see how we can actually get the collection of items, right? Now let me create a new action result, action method mainly. So let me call it as set of set data, right? Now here what I'm going to do here is, let's say I'm going to take list of color objects, right? Let me call it as CAP is equal to name, right? So let's say I'm going to add collection. So I know that there is C, which is my object, add all. Now here I'll have to add a color item, right? So I'll directly add colors. So we have seen that we can actually add this colors in this way. If you remember, we have already seen this pattern that if you do control space, you can see name. Let's say you have let's say green, comma, and you have code. Let's say right. So this is how you can actually add details to your object here. Right. So we are actually closing it and we have this fine. And similarly, let's add some more. See or add or I want new colors, right? Where I'm gonna add this. So let's give color name as color blue, right? Again, let's add one more. Let me copy this color code and let me add it as red. Some other, right? And your list of objects are ready. And now we have to return a view, right? So return, let's say view of, now this time I'm going to send a complete collection, which is your C, capital C. Now what does it mean is I am actually making a simple model object and I can actually send a list of one model object. But now let's see how we can actually handle this in a view. Now let's create a view. So right click on your set data and click on add view, right? Let's keep this as set data and click on add and view. Now the main way, the starting step how we can actually add the data here is, I mean, adding an the object type, right, which your model have to be instantiated, right? We'll actually decide the way you define your model here. Let's say you have model defined. Now here you can directly say list of your MVC intro dot models.colors. Now you can see I'm actually defining my own way of model. Now this whatever you are actually defining here is something which is called as a type of model you are going to take, where whenever you send any object from, whenever you are actually trying to instantiate whatever type of model you have given in your view, right, it will get instantiated, and your model property will actually be in indexing this. Now let's see how to read data. Now we know that we have collections here. Now let's create a simple table. Now in table, what we'll be doing, we'll actually create some rows. Now here you can see you can actually create something called, when you say @ you can actually write a razor code or C# code, right? Now here I want to go to each color, which means I want to iterate through the object which I have received here. Now how can I iterate? I can go to for each, right? So we can type in for each and write complete syntax, or here again go to KS, control KS and for each. You can see it will give you a complete syntax again. Once you start typing @ it will actually go to the C# mode and it will give you all the default colors. Now you can see your collection here is the model, right? The model is a MVC's property, where as soon as you get your object, it will be instantiated. Fine. Now here I'll print. So let me take dr, right? Your PD here. You can see how simple it is to actually make use of this. You don't have to actually, now in your MVC, right, in your view, it will automatically detect which is HTML and which is your code. Right? We're starting with @ now you can see when you say this, it will start and close, and I'm going to use this. But in ASP.NET, if you remember, I'll have to use angular bracket %, and again angular bracket % wherever you want to end the C# code, and again HTML, and again it starts, right? But we exactly don't need it. Now here I want to print whenever you again want to use any C#, or any variable which is defined already, again start with @ right? You can see item dot. Now you can see you have two things, color name, and in next cell, let's say I'm going to take item dot color. That's it, right? Now your simple collection item, you have read it from your controller. See, it's very important. In one controller, what we are using model in two different ways. I'm using colors here, and I'm also using colors here, which means in single controller you can use model in different ways. And model, I just changed the complete phase here. I made it collection of a single model class, and I copied it, and I'm actually dumping it. Now my view can actually take the complete object of collection of colors, where I can actually iterate through each color here, right, which is each model collections item, and then I'm doing this. Right. Now let's run this and see how it works. So open it up. Now here we know that it will actually by default it will open the index part, right, which is index here, as we haven't done. Now here what we'll do, we'll go to code, and what is the action method? You have set data, right? Take the set data here, because we have to actually give a fully qualified URL, right? Now when you enter, now you can see we got set data, where we actually got different details: green 1, 2, 3, blue so and so, right? Where you can see it is in table. Now if you want to style it up, yes, you can always do that. Now here you can see again, select your TD, right? You can go to properties and have some styles here. Click on that. Okay, sometimes if your style is not working, it's fine. You can write your style is equal to, let's say you have a border. Let's say I'm gonna take it as some solid border, and the border color, let's say it as some gray, right? Let's say border width, let's take it as something, right? I'm gonna take this 3D style which I have created here again, right? And I'm gonna refresh this. When I refresh, you can see it will create a simple table here, that table type size, and which is going to show the data in a format. Right? So anyways, HTML is something which is common across, right? You can create your CSS cascadings, and or you can actually directly give your stylings in directly your 3D, right? So as you actually practice more, right, you will get things get better in general, right? So this will actually make your table. Now here, what you're doing, you're actually reading up all your collection data. That's how it works, right? Now, so this is something, this is how we normally read data, now which is the collection type. Now there's different ways how you can actually read your model, right? Now you can see this is how we normally communicate with the controller and a model, getting details from models, right? Using that models and pushing it to the view to actually display the details. And this is how the actual communication happens in between your model, view, and control. This is something which is a basic fundamental where you actually it works. Now, even if it is a Ajax, right? Even if you are actually looking for some Ajax request, which is normally called as a JSON, we'll see this JSON part now in future class, right? It will be same. So instead of your result type decides what type of data you're actually retrieving. We'll see in the JSON part. Right? So similarly, we said that you have to provide a fully qualified routing. Now this is something which is called as a routing we have done, right? Which means you can decide around routing here. Now let's understand what exactly is a routing here. Now in our web application, which is MVC application, right? Now if you remember, global.sx is something where all your handlers are configured. Now what is a handler? So handler is nothing but whenever request comes up, right? Handler or filter. I mean, it can be. We'll talk about filters, each things in each class. But handler is something which gets triggered in wherever you tag it for a request. Right? We'll actually see the sample handler tomorrow. Now today, let's see what is routing. Now in your app underscore start, if you see, there are so many classes created. One of class is the routing config. Open that. Now your global.sx, what it is doing, it is just calling the method of route config. You can see route config is a class in which there is a static method called register routes. You can see there is a static method called register routes, right? And it is calling and it is providing a route collection. What is route collection? By default, your MVC, you can see your HTTP application, right? Here have got something called route tables, right? Which contains routes here. Now this contains all the different routings, default routings. So this routing object is being passed here, where you can see all the actual routings is being added here, right? Now this is a default which actually got added, and you can actually create your own routings if you want. Now let's see one of the route. If you want to ignore some routes, you can actually see this ignoring. But if you want to actually add multiple routes or mapping routes, you can see it. Now, what exactly is routing here? Now, if you see route, right, by default, right, one routing will be created with the name default here, right? Now, which is, you can see what is the pattern. You can see pattern is controller and action, right? Where your controller is home and your action is index, right? And your ID is an optional. Now what does this ID mean? ID is something where you can actually populate if you have anything. We can actually make this URL as a custom URL, right? So let's see one step of mapping now. First, Now I can create my own mappings here. Now let me show you how to do it. Now let's say I'm gonna copy this. So here let's say I'm going to take some name here. So in our controller, right? So what else you have? You have get data, set data, right? So let me take something called search data, right? And here if you give something on this braces, right, which means this can take any value, right? But if you mention the same name here, then which means if your URL pattern matches with search data, then this is something which it has to use, right? And here I'll give some ID or let's say I will say S key, which is search key. Let's say I'm just taking some data. And here let's say controller is home, right? In home controller, what is action? Let's take action as same, which is search data. And ID, I don't have ID here, right? I have something called S key, which is my S key here. Right, and I'm taking S key. In general, right, we normally use direct ID first and then. So let's keep it ID as this is from now let's create an action method in the controller. Let's say you have action result search data here, and how can I actually map this ID? Now this ID is nothing but a parameter of the search data, and by default it will be your string. Let's take string right, and just return your content. Let's say just return content. I'm not going to add any, and say search key is just print the simple routing. So as soon as you actually get something called search data, now you can see I'm actually without any braces I just gave search data, which means if search data comes up in my URL, right, in this controller under controller home, if I get anything called pattern of search data, then immediately trigger the action called search data and then accept the parameter of ID with this, right? Instead of immediately whatever we give, we'll consider it as an ID and it will be assigned to here. And we are printing it. This is a simple routing here. Now, how can I register this routing? Now, anyways, in my global.sh, I'm already registering all the things in AppStart, right? I'm actually adding to my route table that yes, this is one of the route map I have in my route table, right? So in that way, you don't have to worry. You can see when you say routes.map route, which means in your route table, right, this routing is been added, and whenever you open up a URL, it will actually trigger by default. I mean, if it sees this pattern, it will actually trigger this map routing for it. Let's run this. And here, by default, obviously it will load home. Let's take home and something called your search data, because I'm looking for this pattern. See what happens. Search key is, it will not give anything because we are not providing anything. Let's say I'm gonna say search key as some number. Enter. Now you can see this search key will be taken as a parameter. It will be dumped as a parameter, and it will actually get the data of that parameter, and it will actually. Right. So this is how we normally work with routing. Routing is something which is a very good feature in here, where you can actually create your own way of routings. Different way of routings. Now this mainly is used. Let's take an example of some search. I mean, you are actually creating a action, right? We'll see that part, and we'll see this actual routing, how to send this data, right, from one page to another page, and actually get the search and everything, because we have to understand few controls in MVC, right? Few controls in MVC, and then we start. But this is something which is called as the basic routing, how we do things. Fine. Where you can see in your global assets, one part which we have understood is your routing. Right? Now, what is your bundle config? Now let's go to this bundle config here. Now you can see Normally, right, even in our ASP.NET, right, if you are using any styles or if you are using any JavaScript script APIs, right? So we have to tag that JavaScript to our ASP.NET. Right? How we tag? We tag it with link or we tag it with script addition, right? But here in MVC, you can also do that individually in your view. But normally what we do is we bundle all the conflicts, which means you can see there is an option called bundle collection, right? So this bundle collection and something called dot bundles is something where if you add all the registries, right, this styles will be used, this JavaScript will be used, right, then everything will be added to a bundle, right? And what happens whenever you are actually using any scripting, let's say we are using some jQuery version, right, of .js, right, which you can see in this script we have different JavaScripts, right, and we are adding this to our bundle, which means if I'm using any internal method of this jQuery API, then yes, it will be automatically triggered because I already have my bundle being added. Right, you can see each thing. There are two different things APIs which we add. One script bundle, and another one will be your CSS bundle, which is your styling bundle. Now you can see here as soon as you now I can see here if I'm adding any bundle of JavaScript, right? You can see this is something where I'm mentioning that these are all script bundles I'm adding, which means these are script APIs which I'm adding. Now, why we are actually making it differentiating script and style? Obviously, this bundle should know what type of resource we are actually bundling up. One, we do scripts. Now, the second step you can see it's a style bundling where you are actually bundling your cascading styles, site.style or other dialogues. I mean, different styles are actually bundled. So once you bundle, which means you are actually registering these things across the complete MVC application, and you can use those styles or script methods across anywhere you want, right? So this is about the bundling we have and routing. Right? Now, what is filter? Now, anyways, we'll actually come to this filter config. Let's go to the filter config here. Now, here you can see by default it will actually create a error filter. Now, there are so many filters in ASP.NET, MVC as such. Now, here one filter which you can see is handle error attribute, right? Which means 71 bundles. Okay. See, bundles is something which is used. Now you can see if you go to bundling, right? Now you have something called bundling collection. Where some resources like JavaScript or CSS will be tagged, right? The JavaScript and CSS will be tagged to that bundling resources. Now, in general, we can actually add your cascading styles or your JavaScript site directly to your page, right? Using a link or something, right? Basically, you can actually link your styles actually. Now, what is a style? What is a script? Now, let's say this is JavaScript where I have few methods, right? And if I have to call in any UI or any page or any view, right? But in that case, I should normally have the reference to this script, right? Now, how can I do that referencing? Now, one of the way here is to bundle all the APIs which you want to make visible to your application, fine. And in that way, you have two different things here. One is JavaScript. You have multiple JavaScripts. You can use a script bundle where you can actually, your bundle collection will understand that, okay, I have these scripts which is visible for my application, and you have something called styles. You can see styling is something where you normally create, okay, I mean, the body of page is there, okay, what should be the font, what should be the color, right? All the stylings we do. Now, we have already seen this styling part, a simple styling part here. Now, this is something which where you are actually styling your one field. In this way, you can actually create a separate CSS files, which is a cascading style sheet files where you can actually mention your styles and you can actually reference these to application. Now, how to reference these cascading styles? It is um, using your bundle config using style methods. Right. So this is how we normally use the. Right. Any questions here? So if you want, I'll actually give you one example of how to use styling basically, right? What we have now.